The World Bank.
The World Bank.
The World Bank has just named will be its next president.
지난 16일 차기 세계은행 총재가 선출됐다. 세계의 눈이 쏠린 가운데 세계은행 수장에 선임된 김용 총재. 동양인이 세계은행 총재로 선출된 것은 설립 이후 처음이다. 세계은행은 세계의 경제 성장과 빈곤 퇴치를 위한 대표적인 국제기구로 김용 총재는 앞으로 5년 동안 세계의 동반 성장을 위해서 일하게 될 것이다.
To the science of CNN, 그러면 피플인사이드, that's it.
Yes, 피플인사이드. We are so honored. Yes. 지난 17일 선출 직후 김용 총재는 국내 언론 중에 유일하게 백지연의 피플인사이드와 워싱턴에서 단독 인터뷰를 가졌다. 김용 총재는 20년 넘게 하버드 대학에서 학생들을 가르치며 인재를 양성했고 세계보건기구 에이즈 담당 국장을 맡아 에이즈와 결핵 등 인류의 질병 퇴치를 위해서 헌신한 인물이다. 그리고 지난 2009년에는 동양인 최초로 미국 아이비리그 다트머스 대학의 총장에 취임해 세계의 주목을 받았다. 피플인사이드에서는 다트머스대 총장 취임 직후 김용 총장을 만나 대한민국 청춘들을 위한 21세기형 인재상에 대해 심도 깊은 이야기를 나눴다. 이후 그와의 두 번째 인터뷰를 통해 글로벌 리더십을 키우는 혁신적인 교육 철학과 삶에 대한 긍정적인 가치를 전했다.
It's me to focus my mind, and it turns out scientific studies have shown both of those things.
지난 17일 선출 직후 김용 총재는 국내 언론 중에 유일하게 백지연의 피플인사이드와 워싱턴에서 단독 인터뷰를 가졌다.
As you walk into the World Bank, there's an inscription, and it says, "We dream of a world free of poverty." I can think of no more inspiring mission than that. We dream of a world free of poverty.
한국인의 긍지를 높인 차기 세계은행 총재 김용. 한국 방송 최초로 미국 현지 인터뷰를 통해 그의 비전을 들어본다. 다시 한번 축하드립니다.
감사합니다.
네. 총재님, 저희 피플인사이드하고는 특별히 인터뷰를 많이 하셨어요. 오늘도 저희한테 독점 인터뷰를 해주시는 것이고
예.
3번 인터뷰하셨죠?
그렇죠.
네.
예.
정말 감사드립니다. 어제죠. 어제 이제 확정됐다. 라는 소식 처음 들으셨을 때 어떠셨어요?
처음에는 굉장히 I was very relieved.
네.
그리고 좀 어떻게 생각해야 되는지 좀 모르고
네.
이 월드뱅크는 그렇게 중요한 조직이니까 아주
책임감도 느끼시고
겸손한 마음으로 그렇게
네.
생각했죠.
네.
네.
이렇게 지금
네.
총재님께서 한국을 어렸을 때 떠나셨는데도 한국말을 잘하시고 그 듣는 건 완벽하게
네.
하시면서 그 다 민감한 문제가 있을 수 있으니까 편하시게 네. 한국말로 하시다가 영어로 하시다가 하시면 어떨까요?
예, 그렇게 하겠습니다.
네네. 그 지금 말씀하신 것처럼 굉장히 중요한 조직이죠.
네.
직원만 해도 13,000명이죠?
네, 그 정도예요.
예산이 1년에
한 $2 billion.
2 billion.
네. 그 조직의 budget is $2 billion.
네, 네.
But overall about $60 billion a year.
네,
Yeah.
네.
Yeah.
상당히 많은 인원과
그럼요.
재정,
Yeah.
하실 수 있는 일이 많은 거죠. 해야 할 일도 많으시고.
그럼요. Yeah.
네. 오바마 대통령이 노미네이션 사실을 발표할 때 백악관에서 만나셨잖아요. 그때 개인적으로 만나셨을 땐 어떤 대화를 하셨어요?
He was wonderful. He asked me how I was feeling. He's a very warm person. And before we went out, of course, we were just sitting around talking. It was President Obama, Secretary Geithner, and Secretary Clinton. So for me, just these are three people who I admire so much. And he was just wonderful. And
Like you.
No.
지금은 모든 가족이 행복해 하시나요?
Yeah, I think that anyone who knows me well and has followed me, in my career, knows that this is just an incredible opportunity, one that is is just in many ways a dream come true to be able to work with an organization like the World Bank.
네. 어머님께서 뭐라고 그러시던가요? 소식을 들으시고. 사실 어머님께서 그렇게 하라고 가르치셨잖아요.
Yeah, she was thrilled. I mean, she was really thrilled, and she understands how important the World Bank is. And you can imagine here she was when she was 16 years old. She literally carried my uncle on her back as they walked down to Busan. And they sacrificed so much and brought us to the United States. And now, to see her own son having this opportunity, of course, it's very.
She must be happy.
She's very
so
happy.
proud
She's
of
very,
you.
very, very happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
힐러리 클린턴 장관이 추천했다라는 것으로 보도가 되어 있는데 그런가요?
I'm not sure, but I know she was very supportive of my candidacy, and I thanked her. She's an extraordinary person. My organization, the organization Partners in Health, we worked with President Clinton in Rwanda and other places. And President Clinton just has made extraordinary contributions, and we worked together on everything from lowering the price of drugs for HIV to the current project in Rwanda. So I know that both of them were very supportive.
네. 사실 이번에 일렉션이 있었던 건 처음이잖아요. 근데 그럼에도 불구하고 미국이 지명하면 거의 된다고 생각했기 때문에 걱정을 안 했는데 긴장된 순간이 있으셨어요, 중간에?
Of course. We took nothing for granted. This time was completely different. There were two other candidates, one the Nigerian Minister of Finance, the other the Colombian Minister of Finance, who were really excellent candidates. I talked to both of them. Immediately after the election, I talked to both of them. And we had very good conversations. We agreed to work together very closely.
Yes.
But it's the first time that there was an actual competition. Previously, there was only one candidate, the American candidate. So I had to really work hard to convince the members of the World Bank and present myself and my credentials. So I, over 15 days, we took 22 flights. We visited with ministers of finance, ministers of development, sometimes prime ministers, sometimes heads of state. We visited more than 50 people. 굉장히 재미있는 것은 뭐 에티오피아나 중국이나 멕시코, 브라질 갔을 때는 우리 한국에 대해서 얘기 많이 했어요. One of the things that I said to everybody is, I was born in 1959 in Korea. And Korea at that time was a very poor country. It was poorer than Ghana, a country in Africa. My father was a refugee. He came from North Korea to South Korea by himself when he was 17. He never saw any of his family members again. My mother, during the war, literally walked from Seoul to Busan, where she started school again.
Many people did.
Yes, many people did. So what I told the representatives of these different countries is that the story of Korea has been living in my heart ever since I was a child. My parents were refugees. They came to the United States. I had a chance to have a great education. But even more importantly, while we were in the United States, Korea was growing. It's a story that I told over and over again because it's so important to me. When I was in graduate school, I did my PhD research on Korean economic growth. Right? And what I learned was that in the 1960s and 1970s, many experts were saying that it would be impossible for Korea to grow economically. They were certain about this. And they would say things like, well, modernization depends on a lot of influence from the West. Korea is too Confucian of a society. They will never grow. Right? So what I said to every single Minister of Finance I met was that this taught me something very important. Never say that it's impossible for a country to grow. This is what they said about Korea, and look at Korea now. And I have to tell you, especially among the African ministers of finance and the representatives of the African Union, it was a very inspiring story for them. And that's why they're studying Korea. Because for them, they think that Korea started off very poor, low literacy rate, and look at where they are now, one of the most advanced economies in the world. I have, based on my experience in Korea, I have a truly unshakable optimism. And you have to bring that with you. You have to, if you're going to be leading an organization that's focused on development and poverty alleviation, you have to bring an unshakable optimism to your job. There's no room, no place for cynicism if you're going to be working at a place like the World Bank.
지금 말씀하신 그 optimism으로 절대 빈곤에 시달리는 아프리카나 아시아나 남미 국가들 위해서 일하실 계획이 많으시겠어요.
Yeah. You know, every country that we went to, including the United States, every country we went to, they said, the most important thing is we need rapid economic growth that leads to job creation. Every single country said that. And in every single country, the very specific concern was jobs for young people. Right? So it's remarkable that there's not a single country in the world that doesn't need faster economic growth that creates jobs. You know, I'm an educator, and so as president of Dartmouth, I've been thinking a lot about, are we educating our young people and preparing them for participation in the global economy? And you can imagine in places like Ethiopia, in other countries in Africa, in Latin America, everyone is asking this question. Education is part of the equation, but then the other question is, how do we spur market-oriented growth in a way that creates jobs? So I think that there's no question that that has to be the first responsibility. We've got to look around, look at all the different countries that are having success, and try to work with our member states to help each of them go down the path of rapid economic growth that creates jobs. You know, many of the countries talk to me about the Arab Spring. Right? And the example was that that's what happens when you have economic growth that doesn't include young people, that doesn't include jobs for young people. And I think that there's no question that I have to pay a lot of attention to that immediately. In addition to just, you know, economies have to be sound, they have to grow, they have to be creating jobs. Then the other part is that, you know, there are, in the countries that I visited, some of the most important, you know, some of the largest countries in the world, of course, India, China, they have people living in extreme poverty, but they also have literally billions of people who want to join the middle class. So the estimates are that there are about 5 billion people who want to join the global middle class. There's still 1 billion people living in extreme poverty. And there are goals. We have something called the Millennium Development Goals, you know, 8 really critical goals that are focused on very specific issues, you know, education, maternal health, environmental sustainability. And these are goals that the entire world has embraced. Jim Wolfenson, a former president of the World Bank, was instrumental in getting the entire world to agree on these goals. These are still really important goals. So, you know, as bank president, I will work very hard to rededicate ourselves to doing as much as we can between now and 2015. The deadline for the Millennium Development Goals was 2015. It's coming up very, very quickly. So, you know, we'll have to work very, very hard on achieving those goals. So, every country is different. Every country has their own set of circumstances. And
중재하셔야 되잖아요. 조정하시고.
But these two, I think, are goals that are so broad and so critical that there's no question that those will be two of my very top priorities when I take over.